So let's get right into it. When you imagine a disaster at sea, you probably think of a massive storm or some kind of catastrophic equipment failure. But what if the biggest threat isn't outside the ship at all? What if it's right there on the bridge, hiding in the silence between the crew? We're about to uncover the critical human factors that can turn a perfectly good vessel into a ticking time bomb.
First, let's just let this number sink in. 80%. That's right, a staggering 80% of accidents at sea get chalked up to human error. That's a huge figure, and our first instinct usually is to find one person and point the finger. But is it really that simple?
Because what if we're looking at this all wrong? What if the mistake made by one person isn't the cause but actually the final visible symptom of a much deeper problem? A problem with communication, with culture, with how the team itself works. Let's try to look at this a different way.
All right, so let's really dig into this 80% problem. To get what's going on, we have to look past that easy label of human error and start exploring the complex mess of issues that are hiding just beneath the surface.
Okay, take a look at this. This is a framework often called the deadly dozen, and it really helps us unpack what human error actually is. It's not one thing. It's this whole web of interconnected factors. You can see how fatigue over on the right can easily lead to a lack of awareness or distraction. And look over here. A bad organizational culture can totally torpedo teamwork and communication. It shows that a single mistake is almost never just a single mistake. It's the end result of a lot of smaller, hidden problems all coming together.
And this is really the key takeaway. We can't just fixate on that final mistake, the thing we call the error. We have to look at the whole system that let it happen in the first place. Those hidden cracks in how a team talks to each other, or maybe more importantly, how it doesn't.
And that brings us right to the heart of the matter, the incredible danger of silence. We're about to see how a ship's bridge, which should be one of the most communicative places on Earth, can go completely quiet at the worst possible time. And it often comes down to two things: hierarchy and culture. Now, to really get this, we need to talk about an idea called power distance. It's basically a way to measure the gap between a boss and their subordinate. In cultures with high power distance, junior members of a team are often really hesitant, sometimes even downright scared, to question someone in authority, even if they know something is seriously wrong.
And this is exactly how you get what's called the quiet bridge syndrome. You know, everything looks fine, everyone's at their posts, looking professional, but if that junior officer sees the ship is heading straight for a reef and doesn't say anything because of that power distance, well, then that silence becomes the absolute most dangerous sound on the entire vessel.
And look, this isn't just some abstract theory. This has real, devastating consequences. Take this actual case. A junior seaman from Myanmar could see that his ship was way off course, but the officer giving the orders was from Pakistan, a culture that generally has a higher power distance. So the seaman said nothing. He didn't challenge the officer, and the result? The ship ran aground. It was a disaster that was 100% preventable. But it's not just about hierarchy. The situation gets even trickier when you start layering different cultural communication styles into the mix. This is where you get situations where a simple word like yes might not mean what you think it means. Check this out. On the one hand, you have a direct communication style, which is common with a lot of European officers. For them, giving feedback is just about making the operation better. It's not personal. But on the other hand, you have many Filipino crew members who often prefer a more indirect style. To them, that same direct feedback can feel like a personal insult. Just imagine the constant friction that creates. It completely wears down trust and makes honest communication almost impossible. And the impact of this is huge. In one major grounding, investigators found that 45%, almost half, of all the things that led to the accident were failures in communication. And a lot of those failures came from these exact kinds of cultural wires getting crossed.
Okay, so we've pretty clearly established that a silent bridge is a dangerous one. So the big question is, what do you do about it? How do you fix it? Well, this is where a totally new communications playbook comes in, one that gives people tools to speak up safely.
The big picture solution is a framework called Bridge Resource Management, or BRM for short. Now, it's more than just a nice idea. It's a whole system of training and procedures. And the core philosophy is to use every single resource you have available, the radar, the charts, and most importantly, every single human brain on that bridge to make the absolute best decisions.
And one of the most powerful tools from BRM is basically a script for speaking up. It's called graded assertiveness. One of the most common models is called PACE.
It gives even the most junior person on the crew a clear, 4-step ladder to climb when they need to raise a red flag. You probe, then you alert, then you challenge, and in a dire situation, you declare an emergency. It turns what could be a terrifying confrontation into a standard professional procedure. Here's another tool that sounds super simple but is incredibly effective: closed-loop communication. All it means is that when an order is given, the person who receives it repeats it back. This does two brilliant things at once. First, it confirms the message was actually heard correctly. Second, it forces the receiver to take a split second and actually think, does this order make sense right now? It's a simple habit that closes the door on misunderstandings.
But you know, having the right tools isn't quite enough. For those tools to really work, the whole structure of the team has to change. We need to actually build a modern bridge, and that means moving away from a rigid hierarchy to a more flexible, role-based team.
This slide just lays out the shift perfectly. The old bridge, that was all about a steep pyramid, an autocratic leader at the top, and silence was just how things worked. The modern bridge is much flatter. It's built on a concept called servant leadership, where the leader's main job isn't just to bark orders, but to support and enable the team to perform at their best. In this world, speaking up isn't just tolerated, it is absolutely expected.
So how do you actually do this? You use what's called a role-based model. Instead of thinking in terms of rank, the team is organized by function. You've got someone in the monitor role, the con role, the helmsman role, and so on. And here's the key. These roles are assigned based on who is most competent for that specific job, not just who has the most stripes on their shoulder. This changes everything. Suddenly, it's not a junior officer challenging the captain, it's the person in the monitor role doing their job by alerting the person in the con role. It takes the personal out of it and makes it all about the process.
And this quote just nails the new philosophy of leadership. It says the captain's job isn't just to be in charge, but to actively create an environment of cooperation, to empower every single person to be proactive, and to hunt down and remove any barriers, like power distance or cultural misunderstandings, that get in the way of the team working well together.
So yeah, we've spent this whole time on the bridge of a ship, but these lessons apply to literally any team, in any office or worksite, anywhere. And it leaves every one of us with a really important question to think about. In your team, when things are quiet, is that silence a sign of safety? A sign that everything is running smoothly? Or is it a signal of danger? The sound of a ship, quietly and invisibly heading for the rocks.